Truth BBQ is very traditional Central Texas style barbecue, like to a T. As pitmaster, one of my proudest accolades is currently being number 3 on Texas Monthly's top barbecue restaurants in Texas. Most people come here for brisket, ribs, and sausage. I don't want anything to ever come out perfect, because once it's perfect, it's gone. You're never gonna get any better than perfect. So what we try to tell our staff is we gotta get better every day, that they're almost perfect, so they have something to chase.
My name is Leonard Botello. I'm the owner and pitmaster of Truth BBQ in Houston, Texas. It's about 5:30 this morning. Rib guys have been here since about midnight last night, so we're gonna go check on them and get the briskets loaded and get ready for the day. So this is all of our bakery counter, all our pastries and everything. This is our front line. This is where service goes through. This is my favorite part. This is our pit room. We got 5 1,000-gallon pits. We got another one outside. Outside is probably my favorite one. We're gonna go get the 1,000-gallon mill scale set up. That's kind of our overflow pit. Basically, we just took some live coals from one of our other pits to get this bad boy fired up. You can use a blowtorch, but it's pretty harsh when you're lighting the fire. Those logs will become like jet black and they'll put off a lot of smoke. We use 100% post oak out of Central Texas, a place in Smithville. All of this wood is aged for about 12 to 14 months and has about 12 to 15% moisture reading in there. And the only time that these pits die are Sunday during service around 3 to 4 p.m. because we're closed on Monday, and then they get fired back up at 5 o'clock on Monday morning. So there's only really a 12-hour timeline of when the logs aren't burning. So this is our burn barrel. This is just a little box of hell, if you will. It is loaded down with logs. They're gonna break down through these grates, and what's gonna fall down there is basically natural charcoal. So we're gonna use this guy right here. This is our hog cooker. This is only fueled with charcoal. So we're not burning any flames like this. It's just coming off the radiant heat from the charcoal. So 2 different styles of cooking. This is more Carolina style. And this is our overflow pit. I think they have about 120 briskets all around on top of beef ribs and pork butts going today. I personally like to cook outside more than I do inside because the inside is very much more controlled and it cooks like a lab versus cooking outside and you're just fighting the natural environment. So we're gonna head inside right now. We're gonna go get the speed rack and we're gonna start loading these briskets on. Will, you busy? Will is 14 years old. He's our fastest learner.
23.
He's a child prodigy. He embarrassed me about a month ago. Elliot asked him what a comfortable number of amount of rack of ribs one person could handle, and Will said 125. 125 racks by yourself is not easy because that's pretty much all these pits filled up.
That's like, 5 pits going full blast.
That's difficult for me, but it was easy for him.
It's doable, not easy, it's doable.
So these got seasoned yesterday. They're trimmed up probably the day before. So we slather it up with mustard. We use our seasoning. Putting it in the cooler the night before actually helps that seasoning adhere a little bit better, and it helps speed up the bark building process. So it's about 6:30 right now. These are gonna go on and they're gonna probably finish off in about 14, 16 hours. Let's hope that it's not gonna be extended and it's not gonna start raining on us, because that definitely will affect the temperatures in here. It takes about 9 to 10 people to crank out about 120 briskets a day. At least that many people touching them that have some effect on this cook. Briskets are about 12 to 14 pounds and 120 across the board. About 1,500, 1,600 pounds. The main reason that we like these 1,000-gallon propane tanks is because since they're cylinder, when the airflow comes in from the firebox, it starts to make this vortex and it starts to make this really, really natural convection. So it keeps all these briskets at the end very uniform with the ones at the front. So it's basically live fire natural convection oven, if that makes sense. That's all we're doing here. I like to rock 2 water pans in the front. We add moisture into our pit because heat and smoke is attracted to moisture. And if there's no moisture inside of the pit, it's gonna take it straight out of the protein. So your briskets are gonna dry up. It's about 7 o'clock. We're gonna go grab the pig. We're gonna get this bad boy on. Jared's gonna be with us today. He's basically our hog guy and all around everything else. He was off today, but he knew that we were cooking a pig and he wanted to come and cook a pig.
Definitely.
Surprisingly, it's better to use commodity pigs because they don't have nearly as much fat in them. pig by itself already has a ton of fat in it. And if it's a heritage pig that ate acorns and flowers the entire time, you're gonna risk this thing lighting up like napalm, because the entire time it's rendering fat from all of these areas the entire time, and it's just dripping on top of the coals. And there are times where those coals will just flare up and they will ignite. It is a completely different style of cooking, and people in Texas are not used to it. So when we did it originally, people were just ordering pulled pork still. So we kind of took that away from them and forced them to eat whole hog, because I wanted them to experience that. And the reason I put that water on there was just so this table salt could adhere to that. It's not gonna add any flavor, and it's not gonna make it super, super salty. All it's going to do is take the moisture out of the skin. So it'll crisp up super, super fast once it gets flipped over and we start hammering it with those coals. Every time I post this on Instagram, everybody is like, that pig is way too salty, but it doesn't actually go into the skin. So it's about 8 o'clock. We got some coals going. We're gonna coast this guy. The coals usually last about 45 minutes to an hour, and then we're just gonna have to replenish. I really wanted to cook pigs because I wanted a product that was a little bit cheaper. And pigs fluctuate from $1 something to $2 something a pound for a whole pig. But what I didn't realize was you're not really getting the initial burn like you are in the brisket cook, but on the pig, we get the end part of the wood, and that's it. So it's gonna last a lot less, and you're gonna have to go through a ton more wood. So this is cooking 24, 25 briskets right now. This is getting ready to cook one pig. And this is all day long, just like full of wood the entire time. Probably be more fun to burn dollar bills at that point. We're gonna close everything up. We're gonna let the salt do all its magic and just keep on shoveling coals in there. So it's 10 a.m. So these have been on about 3.5 hours. Sometimes you'll see this puddling up. It's just the moisture coming up from the muscle and the fat rendering. We always tip them over, drain all that stuff out. If you leave that moisture in there, what'll happen is all that bark will wash out, and we spend 12 plus hours trying to build that bark on there. I don't know if you noticed the size of the briskets when we put them on versus the size of them now, and they've only been on for about 3.5 hours. They're starting to slowly shrink up. So all we're doing is basically adding an extra layer of protection to even all those muscles out. And that's what we're gonna do right now. These are actually cheat sheets. They're made for baked potatoes, but they're perfect for briskets. After this, they're gonna wait another hour, and then they're gonna start to rotate all those briskets in that in and out weave that we were talking about. So we got sausage on pit number 1. Again, they were cold smoked, so they got a little bit of color on there already. So you can kind of see, or they have a little bit of bouillon on here, pepper jack, house, jalapeno cheddar. This is for the beginning part of service. Then they're gonna fire another batch and another batch and another batch. It's about 10:45 right now. You can already feel the heat from the burn barrel all the way over here. You can kind of see the mirage of heat that's coming off of it. We are running up on pre-shift time. The best advice that I ever got was from Pat Martin. And he was like, Leonard, if you don't start the day right, it is the equivalent to going onto the football field and not having your ankles taped up. You risk everything. Pre-shift is basically us taping up our ankles and getting ready for war today, tomorrow, and the next day, and the rest of the existence of Truth BBQ. But we do it every single day. All right, big round of applause. Dylan was here 5 minutes before his shift today. Has anybody sent any plates down recently? You sent a plate down? All right, everybody give Ashley a round of applause. That is the attention to detail that it's not a big deal. If it doesn't look like you would spend your money on it, send it back. It is okay. Sometimes we get bogged down and we're going, and we just miss a step. Send it back so we can get those steps corrected. All right, guys? Let's have an awesome day. When we were talking about sending a plate down, cashier, even though she's not touching the meat or cutting the meat, she's just as important as the person that is cutting the meat because she is expoing it for the most part. We don't have an expo. I always tell them, if you look down at a plate and you see how much it costs on the register, would you spend that money on that? And if not, send it back to make it look like you would spend that money. Each little detail of each person's job actually has a huge impact on what we do. It's not just this. Ashley sending that plate back means a lot to me. So it's cool to see them doing that. It's about 11:30, and we like to do some QC up here on the line, so make sure that we can pivot on the back end on the pits if we need to. I just like to get visuals on what the brisket, ribs, sausage, everything looks like, and it's also fun to interact with the customers. Turkey? Anything else? Chopped or sliced? Chopped? about right at 2 o'clock. We're gonna check on this pig. We're just gonna start knocking all this salt off. This is just rebar. We drop it on top of that. If we were cristing the skin with the grate, it wouldn't be able to pull all the way through. So this rebar helps it bubble up in between each rebar. It's just a better way of getting a little bit more heat to the skin. That easy. It's about 2:30. We've gone through, I think, 4 rotations so far on this pit. We're gonna start wrapping these guys up. You can use butcher paper, you can use foil. With the paper, it still allows smoke to penetrate the brisket, and some of that rendered fat will escape from the paper, but not too much of it. So it's kind of like the sweet medium between foil and no foil, but there's no right or wrong way to cook a brisket. At home, if you're cooking on a smaller pit, 9 times out of 10, foil is gonna do a better job than butcher paper. It's all about what works for the pit you're cooking on. We continue to use apple cider vinegar when we wrap it up. You can kind of see it's still got a little bit of life in it. It's not gonna fall apart. And it's nice and pillowy on top. The acidity in the vinegar is gonna keep it from sticking to the paper when those fats are rendering down. So if you don't use any moisture or add any moisture into your wrap, what's gonna happen is those fats are gonna start to caramelize. They're gonna stick to the paper, and when you unwrap the brisket, the bark is just gonna rip off, and we've been working for 11 hours on this bark. So that's the last thing that we wanna do. Make sure everything is nice and tight. Fold that guy down, just like that. We do it over and over and over again. It is about 5 p.m. Pig is about 188 to 190 in the shoulders and the hams. You can see all this fat rendering out and puddling up down here. You see how constant the drip is? It's like, it's very consistent. So that's like pretty good sign that we're ready to go to start cristing this up. And all this stuff that's accumulated here and puddled up over here is what we're gonna have to be really careful for. I like this spade shovel for briskets because you can maneuver it around the logs a little bit more. I like this flat shovel for hog cooks because you can get more coals in there. And then you can kind of go side to side and be a little bit more strategic about where you're placing your coals. In between that, we're gonna go over to the offset and we're gonna check the briskets because they should be just about ready to pull. Yeah, these are definitely done. What we're looking for is this nice saturation in paper. You can see all that puddling up down there. You wanna be able to push your finger into it, but it still needs to have a nice bit of resistance in there. I would say it's almost like a filled water balloon. You could probably definitely push your fingers through there and it'll definitely pop. When we're pulling all these briskets off, a lot of people will say they need to rest for 1.5 to 2 hours or so. I mean, that's what a lot of places on the internet say, but we don't know if that brisket was 10 pounds or 25 pounds. So the sweet spot is really 145 degrees. So we're gonna load them up on these speed racks and we're gonna have airflow going underneath them and on top of them so they can cool down at a normal rate versus putting it on top of a table and it's just reconducting that heat. And it can take anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to get down to 145 degrees. On this pig, we are 10.5 hours in. Smaller pig, quicker cook time. We're ready to crisp. We're gonna get some fresh coals and move it over the fat and it's going to blister it immediately. Should be interesting. There's a lot of fat puddled up down there. So you see it starting to puff up right here. We have a ton of work ahead of us for the rest of the night. So we're gonna let this guy finish up, pull the rest of these briskets and start prep for midnight shift and finish up for the night. I'd love for you guys to stay, but we got a ton to do. So I'm sorry, but you guys gotta get out of here.